So hello everyone and welcome to the Project Online customer panel session here at Ignite. My name is Yuval Stern and I'm the partner lead at the Project Invisio marketing group in Microsoft. In this 75-minute session, we would like to share the experiences of our customers and through their stories answer some fundamental questions like what is Project Online, why Project Online is beneficial for their organizations, and how to successfully implement Project Online. And in order to keep this session on track, I would like to start off with a very short introduction of the business problem that Project Online is trying to resolve, then have our customers present their stories, and leave just enough time for Q&A panel. I would like to encourage you to ask any kind of question that comes to mind, because my mission here is to make sure that you're leaving this room and you know everything you need to know about Project Online going forward. Our world is changing and changing fast. Frequent new emerging technology, consumers' appetite for new products and services, upsurging regulation, obviously, and a changing competitive landscape are some of the forcing functions that dictate the need of companies to change and reinvent themselves. I really liked Pradeep Singh's citation yesterday during the keynote, if you heard, citing Jack Welch saying that when the pace of change on the outside exceeds the pace of change on the inside, the end is near. And companies realize that. So what does that have to do with Project or Project Online? As opposed to repetitious operations, projects are the company's vessels to drive change, making project within the very highest interest of companies to make sure that their full value is realized within that investment in change. Is that happening in real life? So let's take a peek at this chart. The blue square represents the full value that could be realized in the investment in change. In order for that to happen, we need 100% of the projects to be successful, meaning meeting their goals, meeting their scope within budget and time constraints. But also, we need that all of those projects will be aligned with the company's strategy. Is this really happening? You know the statistics for your organizations probably, but different studies are showing that this is not really happening, in practice. We could pick the number 70% as a golden number that is pretty close to, what's really happening around the success ratios of projects, as well as the number of projects that are really aligned with the company's strategy. The product of those two probabilities is that about half of the value of the investment in change is realized, and potentially half of that value is lost. Even if your numbers are slightly higher, take 80% success in your project ratios, 80% alignment to your business strategy, you'll still end up with more than 30%, 35% of value that's lost. How is that connected to Project Online? So Project Online, that is nowadays delivered as a service through Office 365, is the perfect framework to make sure that your company is choosing the right projects that are aligned with the strategy, and obviously to make sure that those projects are carried out successfully. That being said, I would like to invite our first speaker, our first customer, Mr. Larry Christensen from St. Luke's Health System, to share his story. Then we'll have the second customer presenting his story, and then we'll move to our Q&A panel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Well, hello, everyone. I wanted to talk a little bit about myself if I could, which I don't do very often. So my name is Larry Christensen, and I work at St. Luke's Health System, which is actually located in Boise, Idaho. So we were one of the larger implementations of Project Online in the Northwest, and definitely one of the larger ones for a health system. So they asked me to come and speak. So for those of you that looked at my profile and thought I was tall, dark, and handsome, well, surprise. But we're here to have fun today. I'm not a very technical guy in a lot of ways, so today is going to be pretty casual, and we'll get to know each other, we hope, through the question and answer time. But a little bit about myself. I was actually in the IT world for about 30 years for various reasons. Did various things. Really, really enjoyed it. I still do because I get to interact very much with the IT department today. And it was a great career choice for me, and I really enjoyed it. About 3 years ago, I became a member of the PMO, the Project Management Office, and at the time it was an IT PMO. And because of the success that we were having, they asked us to become an enterprise PMO. So now we do and manage all of that type of work for the entire enterprise. And that's where I belong. And then what it was is because of my background in IT, they asked if I would oversee the tools that were supporting the PMO. And the big one that does that is Project, Microsoft Project. Let me give you a little bit of history about St. Luke's. St. Luke's was founded in 1902, and we were just actually a country hospital, very small, very, very small community at the time, actually. And we have since turned into the largest health provider in the entire state of Idaho. We are still locally managed through in Idaho. We don't belong to any larger conglomerate or anything like that, and we're still we're still the only health system in the state of Idaho that is self-owned. We started off with one hospital, and then we had a couple of little smaller emergency hospitals and a few clinics, and now today we have 7 hospitals and 250 clinics within our portfolio. And now I know most of you have heard of the Affordable Care Act, or some call it Obamacare, and we know that fixed everything. So we as a health system, we were actually called St. Luke's Medical Center originally, but because of the changes in regulations that are starting to come up, there was a requirement for a lot of paperwork and a lot of processes to take place. And a lot of these smaller clinics and smaller hospitals honestly just could not manage it. So they've been joining larger groups. And in doing that, we became a health system, or almost in a way, self-contained. There isn't really a health service that we can't offer because of this reason. We are the state's largest employer. We have over 12,000, really actually approaching 14,000 employees now to do that. There's a lot of things that go on, and there's a small city that has to take care of those things. So we are the largest employer in the state of Idaho, which is maybe surprises a few folks, because we do have some of the larger companies like Hewlett-Packard, and I saw Micron was here, and we have some of those that are located in Boise, Idaho. But we actually exceed those as far as the employer. We have over medical staff, over 2,000 doctors, and we have nearly or over 1,000 volunteers that help support us every day. So that tells you a little bit about St. Luke's, in a sense. With that, and with the need for projects, came the chaos because of the growth that we experienced. We started off with an attitude of, doesn't matter what it costs, doesn't matter how long it takes, and everything is approved. And we lived by that. We could walk out in our backyard and pick money off the money tree. I mean, that's the world we lived in. It's not that way today. It's not that way today. So there was a need for some order to the chaos. Now, I don't know if this will surprise anybody, but the formality of project management was not introduced to St. Luke's until about 4 years ago. I mean, that's the kind of growth that we've seen. Now, we had people that did project management. We just didn't call it that. You would walk by and you'd say, hey, you don't look like you're busy. Here's a project, or we need you to do this. And that person became a project manager. And now we have formalized that a little bit differently. We have about 50 project managers now that are actually called project managers. And we have been educating our leadership on what project management means and introducing them to a brand new world. This introduction was a huge change for the business. And if I had anything to recommend to you as you go back to your businesses, when you're getting ready to do this, change management is going to be one of your largest challenges. And I know that you've all experienced this before. But hospitals are very traditional in what they do. They've always done things the way they do them. And because of that, change is difficult. And especially, and I hope there's no doctors in here, but doctors are a tough crowd. They are very elitist in a sense because they have to be. They can't be in an operation room or in a surgical situation and have people questioning them about their decisions, and because of that, they have to grow up with that. Well, that doesn't change after they leave the surgical room. So working with doctors is an interesting thing. So therefore, our CEO is a doctor. Our CIO is a doctor. And that's what we have to do. We have to communicate with doctors through doctors. So that's kind of a little bit about that. So we went on a journey when we started this. So people had heard about Microsoft Project. It was a great tool. It always has been a great tool for project management world. And what it was is that the earliest version that I saw when I started to look around was about 2003. And this was a desktop version. Everybody had one that wanted one. And they could do their projects. They kept it out on a file share and very independent. Nobody really knew what they were doing. And there wasn't a lot of ability, in a sense, to track resources, projects, progress, and all the other stuff that comes along with it. So there was a lot of desktop versions out there, so there was no visibility to what was going on. And frankly, the project managers liked that. You couldn't really tell, you could only tell what was going on by what they told you, and everything's always green in their world. Well, about 2012, we introduced a cloud-based application called Initas. And it was a great portfolio management tool. We were able to capture all of the work that we were doing, put it into a system, build some portfolio-type functionality around it, and demonstrate that. But as you've all showed you earlier, there is two legs to this process. One is doing the right project and doing the project right. Well, Initas offered us a doing the right project kind of functionality. And the acceptance of doing the project right from the project managers was not there. They were used to Microsoft Project, and Initas was a new world for them. And so their acceptance was a little bit resistant. But management loved it. We could give them reports, we could talk to them, we could introduce things to them they never had before. But we still had the non-support, in a sense, from the project management world. So what that ended up being was dual entry was going on everywhere. They had their desktop version of project, they were keeping their schedules in, and then we had them putting also information into Initas so we could report it, and we had this dual entry world. And I know this will surprise you, because it certainly did me. Things were out of sync all the time. Okay? And so it was like, this is going to be a struggle for us. So we'd heard enough about 2014. So last fall, we decided we were going to go with Microsoft Project. And we had an opportunity to go with Microsoft Project Server or Microsoft Project Online. And so we did some conversations. We had some requirement conversations and things like that about where IT wanted to take the world. And they were in a process of taking the world to Office 365 on the cloud. So we said Microsoft Project Online is our direction. Now, they threw it in my lap and they said, okay, go ahead and get it installed. Well, I didn't know what I was doing, so I solicited the help of a couple of gentlemen. I won't make them stand up, but they're from Advisicon. They're right over here. And they kind of took me by the hand, and they have walked me through the process of getting it done. And it's been a great experience with them. They have been fantastic to work with, very knowledgeable, and very patient, and it was just what I needed. It was a lifeblood that I needed to get this thing going. What this offered us, though, was a brand new world. Microsoft Project Online did. As most of you know, it sits on SharePoint. And with that, we were given the opportunity to offer a few things that we had never had before. One was a project site, of all things. We could actually have a SharePoint site that was dedicated to a project. Okay? As soon as you create a project, it gives you a site, and with that site comes some templates and all that. And it was a great way for us to start collaborating. And also, it gave us the ability to build workflows. So we could control some of the request process, some of the financial process, and all of that we needed to take place. And we had this workflow mechanism. These are new concepts to the system, and we are still in the process of getting some of this change management in place so that people, because boy, I tell you, they love their paper, and they love to physically sign it. And we have an army of admins that run paper around the hospital getting signatures. We're trying to introduce an electronic way of approving things. And this was the tool that was going to do this for us. The PMs loved it. It's a Microsoft project again for them. However, Project Server, in this case Project Online, exposed, and I say that with tongue in cheek, exposed the work they were doing. Are they keeping their schedules up? Are their resources in place correctly? They have to share resources now, so they have to schedule them correctly. And things like that. I mean, when you see a project that lasts a year and it's got 3 people on it, but it's 300,000 hours to do it, you know there's a problem. And that's what it was starting to expose. So we're getting that going with them, but they love it. It's a great shift for them. Leadership is now excited as well. They are starting to talk about capacity management, demand management, portfolio management, dashboarding, and the list goes on and on and on. And this system is giving us this ability that we've never had before. So all of this chaos that we have seen in the past is starting to come together in an organized fashion. So some of the benefits that we saw out of this was collaboration is huge now. People are actually talking to each other. We're actually talking about eliminating, in a sense, a paper status report, for example, because people have access to this. And like I mentioned earlier, workflow capabilities are in place. Visibility is now a big deal for us. Things are updated real time. We can see changes as we need them. We can see where people are working. We can see if they're overbooked. We can see a lot of things that we couldn't see before. Task assignments are being watched and monitored better. We're getting better results and better training for our project managers so that they can manage their schedules better. It's also a common environment for us. The look and feel between projects and stuff is pretty common. So if you're an executive sponsor and you're part of several projects, you can go to these projects and go to the same place for each project and see what you need to see. We have the ability to build common processes for our project managers. We are capturing the common data that we need to do our dashboarding and reporting. And we also have processes that we can put into place as a PMO to help support and maintain this world. So As you can tell, I'm very excited about this. This was a real game changer for us in putting together a system that grew from 1 hospital to 7. In fact, the last biggest growth we've seen has been in the last 3 to 4 years. And this has helped us take all of that chaos and start doing something to manage it. So there's going to be questions afterwards. At this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Yuval, and I thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Larry, for sharing this great experience of yours. This is definitely a tremendous story of change management by itself, being able to move from the status you were in 4 years ago to where you're at now. It's pretty impressive. With that, I would like to welcome and thank Glenn Redman from TE Connectivity, and he will share his story with you as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Good afternoon. That was okay. Like I said, my name is Glenn Redman. I'm from TE Connectivity. It's probably one of the biggest companies that most people have never heard of before. I'll tell you a bit about our company. Larry and I have got a chance to know each other a little bit. Very different perspectives on how to use project. Just quickly, a little bit about me. I've been in the IT business for about 25 years, all with the same company. We've gone through a lot of iterations, mergers, and acquisitions. Spent probably 20 of those years in the IT organization, spent 5 years in a finance role, working at our largest business unit. So for those of you IT people out there, I encourage you to get out of IT once in a while. It was the best experience because you really kind of see things from the other side. The last couple of years, I've been back in an IT role in an engineering system area. So I run a PMO for that piece of it, and I also run something called our Engineering Excellence. And we're going to focus on that a little bit here today, about what that means and how that's really important from a Project Online perspective. We actually have deployed Project Online in 2 different areas. One for our IT organization, classic IT project management, and we're in the midst of rolling that out now. We have a second implementation that we started last year. We're continuing now that I'm going to talk about for our engineering community. So I'm going to focus on what we're doing from an engineering perspective. What you need to, well, I'll finish that in a second. Let me tell you a little bit about us. You know, we're almost a $14 billion company. We make lots and lots and lots of little things. Every product that you have, every electronic you have, we make something that's in there just about. Just to give you a little, it doesn't look great, but very geographically dispersed, very industry dispersed. Our biggest industry is in transportation. We make almost everything that goes in your car, from sensors to cable assemblies to the infotainment that goes in and connects all your equipment together. All through our industrial business, networks and communications, and a lot of consumer electronics. And what's important to recognize within this, we've got 4 business segments. We have 17 different business units, and they all do business a little bit differently. When you think about it, in the transportation world, products may last for several years, right? You have a model of a car that may last 4 or 5 years, and products, once you've earned that business, last for a while you're working on the next one. Consumer electronics, the life of some of the product is 6 months. So we have a very diverse set of industries that we serve, which makes our projects very challenging. And then geographically, you'll see that we're split. That one, and I have to give you a disclaimer. These were really pretty slides until Microsoft got a hold of them and put them in their template, and then they got really ugly. These used to be, it's his fault. It is your fault. But what you'll see is that blue bubble that has nothing on it represents China. So if you look at the 3 regions, we have almost identically split across the 3 regions, about $4.5 billion worth of business. We do business, as you see on the bottom here, we have, I think, 92, I can't add up, 92 manufacturing sites across those regions. And you'll see on the bottom the thing we're focusing on, the number of engineers. We have between 6,000 and 7,000 engineers around the world. We are an engineering company. That's what we do. We also manufacture things and so forth, but we really primarily are an engineering company, which is kind of important to what we're trying to accomplish. So, our goal was looking at our 6,000 plus engineers and how do we make their jobs more effective. It's the single largest investment that we make, several $billion in engineering services, both developing new products and sustaining existing products. So within those people, we actually at any given time, or just to give you a little scale, we sell over 500,000 different parts. And so down in the corner here, the word Lean PD is the process that we use to develop new products. It's called Lean Enterprise Accelerated New Product Development. I always forget that. But the important thing is that we have about 1,200 project managers that are engineers developing new products. They're running at any given time between 5,000 and 7,000 projects around the world, using virtual teams that may comprise different engineering disciplines, different manufacturing disciplines, finance, procurement from around the world. So a particular project team may have members in different regions, different countries, working together. So as you start to get the scale of it, trying to get 7,000 people with 1,200 project managers with 5,000 to 7,000 projects working together, it's not an easy thing. So that was our challenge. And we, some of the things Larry said on a different scale, we had the same issue. We had 17 different businesses. These guys use Microsoft Project really well, and they had a file server over here. We had these guys over here that, well, they did everything in Excel because, well, they knew how to use that, and that was okay. And it was over here on a shared drive. We had some folks over here with a SharePoint with a bunch of servers, and they had a mix of those things. We had some third-party packages of all sort, and we had no visibility to what everybody was doing. The largest investment in our company, we had no visibility. So we wanted to fix that. This kind of gives you just a little example. We hadn't neglected this area. We hadn't invested very well in it, but we had a tool called Program Central. It was very engineering specific from another company. And we realized that we had gotten really good at having people duplicate entry of things, much like Larry did, that said, well, we want to know the governance. So all these different projects, we have our 5,000 or 7,000 projects going on, different types, different sizes. Some projects may run for a month or two. Some projects may run 3 years. So the governance of those was very different. We had different governance streams based upon the business, the type of project, the risk, and the things that we had to deal with. So we had people enter things in, so we had one place to go and look at the governance that was going on. So we at least knew what was happening. And then some of the deliverables. So we at least enumerated the deliverables we expected out of that. But that's all we had centralized, and it was often duplicated. And what we learned over time was, because people were doing duplicate entry, they just stopped doing it. And so the really large projects people would put in there because they had the time to do it. We lost visibility to a lot of the smaller projects, which there were a lot more of them. So that was a real problem. When we looked at the online environment, for TE, we're, and I don't know, the Microsoft guys can tell me, but I know we're a pretty big consumer of Office 365. We're just finishing our deployment of about 40,000 people into Office 365. When we looked at how we're going to deploy project or a project environment, we said, you know what, that's our direction. Cloud-based computing is our direction. We're already a huge investment in Office 365. We wanted these other things together. We knew SharePoint. We wanted that integration with Outlook and some of the other things. So we decided the online environment was best for us, given our decentralized nature, given where we were going as a company. So that was, if you have questions about that, we can talk about that as well. But at a high level, some of the benefits listed up there. We wanted all of our projects visible. We wanted something faster to get them visible in real time. We didn't have centralized resource visibility. So today we've moved where we have a single resource pool for these 7,000 people. So it's certainly a challenging environment. Easier to get the projects in the system, again, with no duplicate entry of that. And we also, we keep talking to our people around the world that project management should be a team sport. It's not one guy that goes and takes all the input and keeps the project up to date. This has allowed us to get more people to participate in what's happening within the project. Okay. So when we went out to the business, so we've got these 17 different businesses, and we have to get them to agree on some fundamental part of what we're trying to do, which was not easy. One of the things that, again, same thing we've heard from Larry and other people is, we had these 17 businesses. We had, again, 1,200 project managers, not insignificant. We didn't call them that either. We called them core team leaders. I don't know why we called them that, other than I think we wanted to pay them less because we didn't want them to think that they were really important. We have spent the last year retraining all of them. We've sent them all through, basic, intermediate, advanced project management training. We've done all sorts of portfolio training. we've invested a ton in that. And then within each of those 17 business units, we've created individual PMOs that will own that responsibility. Critically important to have that hierarchy, at least for the size of business we're doing. Again, I talked about the competency, the portfolio classification. We had done a very poor job in the past, so we understood where things fit within our entire framework. So we've changed the classification process within the tool set, which we can talk about. Risk and governance. So we didn't do really well with keeping track of actions and decisions and issues and risks. We now have them centralized, where they're instantaneously visible to everybody. We can roll them up. We can see them across the enterprise. We can assign them to people, which we can never do, and we can actually keep track of target dates. Imagine that. We also, in these 17 different business units, none of them wanted to do things the same. So when we start and we develop the workflows for each of them, we have multiple different workflows. We share some, but they each were given their ability to create their own templates. One of the flexibilities in the system that was awesome for us was that I could go in and create a project plan. For some of our less sophisticated businesses, it's their milestones. It's their major milestones. That's it. For the other businesses, our automotive business, which has to go through a very rigorous testing and compliance process, their project plans are 2,000 and 3,000 tasks long. So we're able to support that in a library within the system and allow them to adopt those and integrate them into their project plans as they go through the life cycle. I'll skip a couple of these. But again, the light project I talked about, the ability to get projects in the system faster as opposed to all these decentralized things was really important to us. And then the KPIs and the metrics. Our ability to measure our businesses was lacking. We did it in many different ways because we had inconsistent data. We've now centralized that, so we've got one set of KPIs off of the same information, which is pretty critical. This was just to kind of give you a little bit of these are just different types of process in our life cycle. Our governance is pretty complicated. I think, I won't say who it was, but one of the project guys says, do you guys realize how complicated your workflows are? One of you guys said that. And they are, because we have 17 different businesses, and we're trying to manage that. So what you'll see is that there's different types of life cycles within each of our projects that we go through, and they change over time. When we go from a new product to something that we're implementing, to something that we're sustaining, and within our workflows in some of these cases, we have handoffs where we've got different people that are responsible for it. So that workflow changes the project manager from one person to another in that life cycle, which is pretty important to us. And these things all have different levels of complexity. So I won't spend too much time on that. Let me talk about the important stuff before we get to questions. Okay, you told me this was going to be a pain, and it is. I'm going to go backwards. It's delayed. All right, help me out here. So, and again, these slides, the nice thing is these were not IT-generated slides. So for those of you people, this was actually put together by our corporate engineering PMO. So this was their perspective. So I just wanted to say that. This isn't just the IT guy tell us how great we are and everything else like that. So these are the things that we thought that we would be able to get out of this. So faster system issue resolution. So what we found with our online implementation, and one of the things that Larry didn't say was, one of the values that we've seen is in our old system that we had, even though it wasn't very robust, we found ourselves customizing a lot of things. Some of you may have done that before. And as we did that, we found out that we were unable to upgrade very easily to the next version. So all these great new functions that people were telling us about, we couldn't get to very quickly. In the online environment, we're seeing changes frequently. So it's forcing us to keep up to date with all the changes. We don't have to worry about upgrades. We don't have to worry about some of those problems that we had in the past. We've already seen, even just in the period of time we've been in the system, we've seen improvements and enhancements that have really helped our business. So that's been a very positive thing from an online environment. The intuitive nature of things. Some of the systems that we've used in the past had icons and had terminology that made no sense to our people. Folks are familiar. They can get in, use tools they're familiar with, get data out of the system, put things, use things in Excel and some of the BI tools. That's a heck of a lot easier and more familiar to them. We haven't quite gotten to our complete portfolio vision yet, but we see the roadmap to get there. So we're starting to get things centralized so we can start doing better portfolio management. More people in the system. So and from a cost perspective, because of the online system, we were able to reduce the cost of getting more people in the system from the current system we had. Some new functions, which I'll talk about. Everything accessible in one place. Again, Larry hit on that, and I kind of explained to you the decentralized nature we had before. So I'll show you our home screen and what we're doing with that. System is better for reporting and planning. So when somebody asks me later what some of the challenges were, that was, for us, our biggest challenge, is that we focused a lot on the process up front, and we didn't do as great of a job of people that now had access to more information, of getting it to them as quickly as possible. So we can talk about that a little bit. And the collaboration piece, which is huge for us because, again, we got people in 40 countries working on projects. We were losing a lot just because of the decentralized nature. This was from our customer. So you'll see up there in the thing that calls TE Project, that was our branding. We actually had a contest internally to brand it. If you've never done something like that, it was a blast, and it really worked well to get people engaged in what we were trying to do and accomplish. Because this is a huge culture change. We're changing the way people do their job. Larry talked about doctors. I'll talk about engineers because I'm sure I'll offend some of you. People very focused on the way they do things. And this was something that was, we're still fighting through all the time today. Is I've always done it this way, don't want to do it that way. In fact, we found a lot of, well, geez, now you're going to know what I'm doing, and I don't like that. So we've had to fight those things. But these were the key areas of our business that we intended to improve with implementing the system, and we've covered a lot of them. The governance piece, again, our flexibility in putting our governance plans together, and the flexibility in the tool was really great for our 17 different businesses. Managing our organizational change, again, and the resource management kind of go together. Since we have a single resource pool, we share people. We have certain specialties we share across businesses. So now having one resource pool, we have an ability for people to pull in folks from other parts of the business. Obviously, project management, which was very decentralized if we did it at all, and now everybody's doing the same thing. Our scheduling, our risk management, road mapping for us is much more about our products and where the roadmaps for our products are going. But again, from our portfolio management, allow us to put platforms together and segregate it a little bit differently to start doing some what-if analysis. I don't know, for our business, we have a huge issue with cannibalization, where when we develop new products, it often takes away from the sales of existing products. And we're trying to track that now within the system to project where that is. Somewhere in here should say something about financial management. It probably doesn't because it kind of weaves its way through. So one of the things that we built, the one custom part that we built in the system was the way we deal with our finances in all these projects. That's what helps get approved. If anybody offline want to talk about how we deal with some of the financial pieces of a project, we came up with a unique way to deal with that. And last, I think I have 2 more slides. This is just a picture of our homepage that we give to everybody. Like Larry said, we've got everybody going to one place now, and we wanted that one-stop shop. We had SharePoint, we had thousands of SharePoints all over the place. Now everybody can get to them from one place. If you want to find a project, you can go search for it, and the workspace is attached to that project. So the schedule, all the issues, everything you need to know about that project, and a workspace is available. One of the cool things is when we set up those workspaces based upon the business, based upon the type of project, whatever criteria you have, that workspace gets filled up with templates that we've developed to be able to tell the project manager, you know what, if you're doing this type of project, here's the 4 things that you need to deliver. And it automatically creates it for them, so they don't have to remember to go do that, which was really neat. But all the things that we have here, from our Project Central, our issues and risks, and again, depending for me as an administrator, I can see the risks across our entire enterprise, which is really neat because I can see it in one place now. On the bottom, we did a lot of things. We created a reporting center, and again, we didn't do it as great as we could have, but we're improving it. But one place to go for people to go and find out all the information they need. We have some business unit links in here. So since we have our different business units, we gave them each a space to put information about their business, the way that they're doing things and using the tool. All of our help and support in one place. We've created video. We've created a lot of videos, a lot of helps, a lot of interactive type help things that are in there that you can go in and say, I can't remember how to go deal with export controlled product. which is something we have to worry about. So there's a video in there that somebody can go in and hit. Again, the important part was everything you can get to from one place, no matter where you're on the world, what your job is, here it is. Our feedback, and this is dangerous, but we do have a feedback loop in here. There's a discussion board that goes on, but there's also feedback where people can put in requests for improvements, enhancements, issues, and so forth, and see the status of them in one place. So again, this was really cool for us. A lot of the things, and some of this is evolving as we're trying to make it easier for people to find things, but we found that it's been pretty effective so far. And lastly, these were some of the benefits that are, again, from our customers that they said that they've started to see out of this. The visibility piece, the portfolio mix, again, the technology piece of integrating that. The customer experience, they'll argue about whether we've achieved that yet or not because they're still getting used to the new environment, but we're getting there. Our productivity, so again, a lot of this is all metrics-based. We expect, as we go down the year that our KPIs will show improvement. And the whole, we believe that over the course of the next 3 years, once we get this fully implemented, that we're going to save over the next 3 years probably $40 million in productivity within our engineering community just by giving visibility to what we're doing. So it's pretty significant. Faster development execution. So again, focus on the issues, risks, activities. We don't forget about things people are doing, closing the gaps quickly. So, and again, better resource utilization, really important given the geographic dispersion, and so forth. So that's the most of it. I threw up here, these are from all of our vice presidents and leaders. We went live with this last November with our automotive group, with our biggest group, which was really brilliant. And so we've deployed it now to probably half of our businesses. And so and there's a lot of business cycles, the reason why we haven't done it more quickly. And again, this is just a huge change. So we figure it's going to take us a year to a year and a half to get it fully rolled out to everybody in the changing environment. So that's our story. That's kind of where we are. So I could tell you 1,000 things about the experiences we've had with the tool and what we've done, but I figured we would move right into Q&A, and we already planted some questions, so we'll get them. But rather address things that you're interested in and the questions you guys have. So I'll ask Yuval and Larry to come back up, and we'll start with some questions.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing this, Glenn. This is really a huge scale implementation, 40 countries, thousands of users, and it's really impressive. As I said before, we would like to welcome any kind of question that comes to mind, answer whatever you guys feel like asking, so go ahead. We have the standing mics, also hand mics that could be dispersed.
Yell.
I think you can probably hear me. Thank you both. That was great. You mentioned change management and adoption as being some of the challenges. Can you talk a little bit more about what you did to overcome those challenges? That would be great to hear.
Guess I'll take that. I'll start this one off.
You can start.
So the biggest thing that we did is we started to demonstrate the benefits that were going to come out of this, because it's difficult to explain to somebody unless they can actually touch and feel it. So we went in there with the idea of knowing that we were going to have some resistance. We did our P&R, we had our conversations, and then the biggest thing that was a real plus for us is when we were actually able to produce some actual results for them. The dashboarding was a big plus for us when they could actually start to see things. That was a stepping stool for them to actually ask more questions and us to show them more things. It's not over. I don't want to say that we solved it all, but it's definitely improved a great deal. They don't hang up on us, or they do answer their phones now. So that's a real plus for us. But that was our biggest thing, is we gave them an opportunity to touch and feel.
Look, let me say something about that, because it's the biggest, the change management and just introducing things. So what we did first of all was, this was a little unusual. We put together a checklist of expectations from our business units to say, before you're allowed to go into the system, here's things that we expect that you will do. And one of those things, from a change management perspective, was there are 2 levels of training they had to go through. One of them, we had their PMO provide that training to them, so it was theirs. They owned it. And then we did more of the system process training secondary to that. But until they demonstrated that they completed those things, they couldn't come and get to us. We also, we erred on this the first time, but we changed our process where, we're using the classic, development, QA, production type, system migration for the things we're doing. We set up a training environment, and we're requiring each of our businesses before they go live is that we put their projects, and we're migrating some of the projects they already had into this environment, and we give them a few weeks to go in, and we require them to do a certain amount of activity in the system. And so they start to see the difference in not just the transactions they're doing, but the process that they're trying to do. So that's kind of how we tried to manage it a little differently.
Thank you. Hello. So my question, I think, really, I'm trying to compare Innotus, how do you pronounce this, with Project Online. Can you share some of your experiences in terms of how you found Project Online to be better? And then one of the other things was because your hospital system is located within Idaho, did you consider the on-prem deployment of Project Server and compared what was the feature set that was the delta between the online version versus the on-prem version as well?
Sure. So our biggest thing was with Innotus, and I don't want to downplay it because Innotus it was a great product, but Innotus was very much a cloud-only based product, and our project managers were really suffering with the fact of performance, in a sense, with what they were doing. I mean, it was set up in a way. They had concentrated most of their efforts on the portfolio management piece, and so the project management side was a little bit weaker. They're getting a lot better with that. But in the meantime, they were struggling with some performance issues, and that's what was really pushing them away from that. The biggest thing that we do is what we call a COTS environment, or we buy most of our software, and we implement it, because hospital software is pretty common around the world, around the country. So we buy a lot of our things, so there's not a lot of development work in that. But what it involved is that because of that, we have a lot of contractors that we implement, and so they're everywhere. And we needed an environment that they could access easily, being on the airplane, being at their home office, be it on site, whatever it was. Project Online offered us that because we could install for the project managers a desktop version of Project that interfaced with the Project Online server and give the project managers that were traveling or moving around the opportunity to go to any web browser and bring it up, and they could see their project and they could work on it right then and there. And that was a big reason why we decided that we were going to go to more of a cloud-based solution, and we did a Project Server on-premise version of that. But that was really our big thing, is the need for this flexibility in a sense to move around.
I'll just say a couple things about that. For us, it's a direction. We believe that longer term that the data center isn't a thing that we want to manage ourselves. So this is kind of a corporate direction for us. But from an online and from a project perspective, our biggest deciding factor when we evaluate, we had other tools in-house. It was simply this. Our people were familiar with using Project. It was prevalent in our organization. It was the number one requirement that was, the Microsoft Project was the tool that we were going to use. Every other company that we evaluated was going to have to be a half a step behind Microsoft in keeping that up to date, and we're going to have version control and other issues that we felt were the difference in functionality wasn't substantial enough. So we felt that it was better for us to go with a native tool to do that. That was our thinking. We'll find out whether or not in the long term that's the right thinking.
Did you actually make a cost comparison between the online and the on-premise? Particularly for Glenn, with 7,000 users?
That's a good question, because when we decided to do this, we did not, I don't remember if we did a full cost out on the on-prem solution. From the beginning, we knew we wanted to go online. That was one of the things that we as a company had wanted to do. We saw this, frankly, as an opportunity, since it was, we had already started rolling out our Office 365. This was an opportunity to do it in a way that was less traumatic to the organization. So this is the only way that we were looking. So I don't know if I have a comparison to it. One of the things that we did do, I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about all this stuff. I don't get too much into licensing, but our folks are tiered. Our project managers obviously are using the full breadth of the Project Pro licenses. But with the light licenses, most of the people that use our system are using the very low-cost licenses. And we found that the capabilities of that were more than sufficient for 90% of our people. So that kept the cost down fairly substantially. But I can't really compare that because I didn't look at what the cost was on premise.
Or did you negotiate a really good deal with Microsoft?
I think we should get a better deal.
But to follow up with that question, we did do a price analysis in a sense with a project server environment versus an online environment, and the savings were very substantial for us. Because I know that you've heard, if you've been to other sessions, you can basically plug and play is what they call it. You just plug it in and it works, and it did. And it was a licensing thing. We didn't have to deal with the servers. We didn't have to deal with all of that other stuff that comes with managing it yourself. And the cost savings was tremendous for us, even in a small environment. So that was pretty good. And I think we got a pretty good deal with Microsoft for our licensing. We too have a 3-tiered deal. It comes with 3 tiers so that you don't have to give somebody more than they need and have to charge them more than they need to be. And like Glenn says, there's always opportunity for improvement there.
Over this.
So my company actually did the cost analysis between on-prem and online. And for us, it all came down to SharePoint. If you have a really strong SharePoint environment, it makes sense to host it yourself if you can, just so you can own the bits and customize and program it. But most people don't have a great SharePoint environment, or don't take the time to lay the groundwork correctly, so that just kind of gives you maybe a little bit more insight. My question for the two gentlemen is more on the process side. So what we're trying to get to in my company, we've been using Project Web App locally since about November of 2014. And we're trying to determine when's the right time to kick off the Project Web App process. What I mean by that is, there's a perf and a business justification for a project. When do we actually go and kick off the project within Project Web App, build out the project site, add the team members, and those sorts of things? Can you guys just give a little bit of idea about the process you're currently using?
So what we did was this, is that we focused our initial attention on our project management community. They were most anxious, they were most willing. Our change management needs were smaller, and they were more willing to jump in and be engaged in doing that. And so we started that process. And so that wasn't really the PWA or the Project Web App world deeply engaged. And then all of a sudden, we had to introduce them to that world, and that's when the change management came to be a very significant piece for them, because now it involves different things for that. So for them, that's what it was, is we started the process of just getting them acclimated, in a sense, to this new project world, and then we introduced them to the new PWA world. And that transition, and we had different issues for doing that. I mean, we had different change issues that we had to deal with the project managers. Once we got through that PWA hurdle, bringing the leadership in the other door and starting them with the PWA world first, they were more anxious to see that, and it worked out better that way for them. And now we're starting to introduce them to more and more things, and it's a conversation that you have. You stop, and as Tim and Ken can tell you from AdvisaCon, we have a lot of training, a lot of show and tell kind of meetings with our leadership now. But yeah, it was a phased process for us. We started slowly, introduced them to what they already knew, already loved, and then we gradually moved them into that other world.
Because I think you're asking about like in the life cycle of the project when.
More from the project management actual side of it than getting the project managers used to using the product.
From our side, since we have such a wide variety, we have different places that we get people involved. So we actually, one of the complications which my Microsoft friends have experienced some of our problems is we actually in our world we have something called an opportunity champion. It's a person that when the first idea of a project comes along, their job is to collect that first level of baseline information. We get those people in, and we get those project visibility the minute an idea comes up. We use it as our almost an ideation process. So in that initiation, we do that we keep that as a library of all these ideas that may not even move forward and get judged very early. And then we actually have a fairly complicated handoff process to project managers once somebody's decided that the pieces are in place to move that along. I don't know if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, that gives me a little bit better understanding. And just a little feedback for Microsoft. There's just hardly any documentation out there for Project Web App. Would love to get some on Channel 9 or MSDN and that sort of place for the on-premise guys. Due to the SEC, we're a financial industry, we can't be in the cloud. So anything you can do to help them would be fantastic.
Thanks for the question. That was a good one.
So thanks both for your insights. One of you mentioned you took all your workflows and put them on Project Online. Can you give some background to the degree of difficulty in that process in reflecting your workflows in the tool?
I think that was me. Was that me? Well, again, the complexity of our workflows is most of our projects. We have typically 6-phase projects, but we've got permutations of that. And like I said, our workflow complication came in from the differences of these projects, and as things happen, if somebody goes in thinking they're starting a certain type of project, because we do introduce them very early into the system, they may get a part way through the project and realize, I thought this was a simple project that we would only govern at 3 phases, but it's more complicated, so I want to change it and make it a different, start a different workflow for that. So we set up a number of different workflows and a process to move projects between those workflows. We also have it set up so that, again, we have different project managers. We call some of them opportunity champions, some of the project managers, where they get handed off from person to person in that workflow. So the complexity was just keeping track of that. Part of it was a security issue, and we still kind of run into this where the security for those individuals, if they're not identical when you try and pass that workflow, things can get hung up and cause unnice things to happen. So,
and we have phases as well that we deal with. We actually have 8. So, a smaller company with more that makes sense, doesn't it? But 4 of those is actually governance. So there's a lot of workflows that are going on in there. It depends on where we need to send the request in a sense. Once it gets into the execution of the project, we have another one in there for the finance department. And this is a big one because each project that is engaged in capital expenditures, they have to get an approval from our finance department to do that. And there's some tax reasons for that. But there was always the question of where's my approval? Where's finance with this? And we could never give them an answer because it was on somebody's desk. And now with the workflow, we can actually see where it is and how long it's been there and stuff like that. So workflow has been a real plus for us.
Next question.
Thank you. For the solution benefits that you are getting, for the overall solution benefits, how crucial is the role of Project Desktop tool? Were there any significant training requirements, and what's the user feedback on that particular tool?
The Project Desktop tool? Yeah. For us, that was a huge piece of our investment. Certainly, we've retrained a bunch of folks on how to use those tools. When you look at the geographic dispersion of our people and having this central system, one of the selling points was the ability to maintain those in the cloud environment, in the central environment, but that the project manager could download them and work on them locally. So we haven't sent all of them yet, but we're in the process of sending all of them through more advanced, Microsoft project training to be able to get better at doing that. And we've actually started some communities regionally where the project managers get together for some best practices so that they're starting to learn how to use the tools a little bit better. Again, what you'll see in our businesses is some are very immature project management-wise, and so we keep their templates very simple so they don't have to overly manage it. And as they get better, they're just getting more complicated as they go. But that was a really important part for the desktop piece for our folks.
And we in turn have also done exactly that. But there's at times when we only introduce people to the PWA project management functionality. We don't actually give them the full-blown, because if they've never used it, it can be very intimidating and very discouraging. And we don't. But the PWA side is trimmed down. It's a little bit easier to use. You can still do the basic functionality. And so we introduce a lot of our non-project managers, in a sense, to just the PWA world so that they don't have to get into that world of project. Because if you guys have been project managers, sometimes it takes quite a while to just get the basic functionality. It's a very robust tool. So thank you for your question.
Yes.
For the online product, how are you doing your portfolio reporting or dashboards? How have you developed those?
I didn't quite get the question.
So you develop portfolio reports for your executives.
Oh,
right?
yes,
Or you'll develop them for different regions, right? How are different projects doing summary reports, roll-up reports, right? So how did you develop those? And did you develop any dashboards for that?
Okay. One thing about Project is the reporting engine is Excel, which is nice. So we started off with building Power Pivot, Power View type of reports, and we're still in the middle of that. This is new things. We are actually migrating over to a Power BI environment for this, because Power BI's ability to do a little bit of self-service, as well as its ability to use some of those engines that are already built in. And that's a nice thing. Plus, we have data that we have to collect from other sources, from our construction department, from our finance and all that, and Power BI gives us the ability to go out and get some of that data. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. It's just that when we were looking at doing it, the way we had the options that I kind of figured out when we were implementing it were either to do direct OData feeds into Excel, but then we were concerned until recently about the performance hit on the OLTP back end of Project Server. We'd execute OData and it would drag our system down in terms of performance. And so then the other option we looked at was running nightly OData feeds into a separate data warehouse in order to construct the cube that comes with the on-prem version of Microsoft Project that doesn't come with the online version of Microsoft Project. And we're still limited, however, to just the information that's in the OData feeds. And as one other addendum, documentation of OData feeds could be done a little bit better too, in terms of not just what the fields are, but how you can relate information between the different OData feeds to one another if you're going to construct a warehouse of your own.
By the way, we have some partner solutions that basically imitate the on-prem SQL database structure and enable to extract, the entire data from Project Online to whether it's Azure or an on-prem setting, and then whoever has the experience with Project Server reporting could do the very same using those type of extensions.
So, and we're doing both things you said. We're using all the Power BI tools on the cloud. Since we're in this major transition, and we had some legacy information in our old system, we actually built an on-prem, database to report out of. So we're pulling stuff down from the cloud as well, some of the high-level information, mixing it up, because some of our businesses have some of their projects on the online tool, some in our old tool, and we wanted to give them one place to be able to report during their transition. So we did create our own, reporting database on-prem.
Great. Thank you for the question. I don't think that side is turned on.
Hello.
There you go.
I'd like to hear a little bit about your experience with the roles and security, and if you found that it's been meeting your needs as far as being who's allowed to and not allowed to get to what, or, you know, especially with the online?
I can't speak to the on-prem. I don't know, but to the online, the security came in was really nice because it gave us an opportunity just to hook up an Active Directory group per the types of users that we had, and that allows for single sign-on. That allows for us to put them into these categories. But the way that they've structured it with PWA is that you can build levels of security that's very, you can pretty well limit what you want or have people see what they want. Was that the question? I'm sorry, I'm having just really a tough time hearing the question.
So in the organization that I'm in, we're just now standing it up in a dev environment, so I may not understand all of how it works, but it was my understanding that you had to, if you were doing with the online, that you had to go with the predefined like SharePoint roles.
We did that.
Or the SharePoint.
Yeah, that's kind of what we did too, is we just defined the roles. Yeah.
We did that because we have a very complicated set of roles. We have a very wide array of people that need to be in different groups, and so it's a little bit of a challenge if you have an organization where people overlap organizations, which we do. So we set up our roles based upon organizations and their function, and some of them overlap, and it's been a little tricky to get that right.
Okay.
Yeah, and the same thing for us. We've got some leaders that are project managers, and so they have to see different things and do different things, but it's working out. There is a learning curve for even the administrators to be able to know which button to push, or all of a sudden somebody can't see something, you're like, oh no, what did I do? And you know, those types of things. You think you can test it all until it goes live, but yeah.
Until you let a doctor touch it.
Yeah, that's right, boy. And they'll let you know right away.
So next question back there.
Thank you. Did you all have any experience with tracking time in Project Online, and then maybe like another CRM tool that you have? Before my company moves to Project Online, a lot of the feedback that I'm getting is like, so I'm going to have to enter time here and keep track of it here. And did you all have any experience with that?
I mean, for us, you know, all our 7,000 project managers track all their time in the system, and we use it religiously for a lot of our investment analysis.
Okay.
This is how we allocate costs around our company, so that was really important to us. Our old system that just did kind of dates and gates did allow us to enter time, so we transitioned to all of that, so people totally enter everything one time.
Okay.
In Project Online, and their timesheets are managed there against their project. So we transitioned totally one source.
Okay. I don't seem to have that luxury, but did you have any experience with that?
Yeah, time tracking is really.
You do it in Project Online as well?
Yeah, we do ours in Project Online as well.
Okay.
Time tracking is a wonderful topic to bring up if you want to have a very colorful conversation. Okay. People just love it. But yeah, we do that, and it's been a real interesting process for our project managers because they have to manage that level of what is the right level to be able to track tasks at, because the presentation of 100 tasks on a time card is not a very popular thing for some people. So that's been a balance. But yeah, we do that, but then we actually transfer that data out of project into our financial system for the purpose of capitalizing.
And
how do you do that? Because that's something that I'm going to need to look into.
Yeah, it's actually right now it's an extract because finance won't allow us a direct connection with their database, so we have to produce an Excel report out of project, and then they upload it into their system.
Okay.
Yeah, we do
and
the same thing.
It goes very well.
We populate a table into our data warehouse that goes into SAP.
Okay.
And feeds that in to be costed.
Okay.
But if you can get a direct connection, I'm sure there's a lot of simpler way to do it.
Okay.
But we just extract the data per time periods and send it up to finance, and then they just upload it.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you use fully resource-loaded schedules, and if so, how has the task updates gone for you?
My answer is it depends. Because you know, we've allowed our businesses to run autonomously. Some of the businesses do fully resourced project plans, and some, you know, they have their phases of their project and they only resource them at the phase. They do fully resource it, but only at the phase level, not at a very, very low level of detail. Seems to have worked okay so far. We're pretty big. You know, we've got probably 2,500, 3,000 people in our resource pool at this point that are doing it, so haven't seen too many problems yet.
Yeah, and we do the same. I mean, we fully resource that in the sense that it comes in. There's actually some flags that you can set on the PWA side that says it's required by the time card to be updated or not. And we've elected not to do that. The project managers wanted more control over it. And then by them going out and putting in a percentage of time completed or whatever, it does some updating with that. But they've come up with some very fancy ways of resourcing their projects and then limiting what is on the time card. I mean, even down to the point of the only parts that they want resourced is certain summary tasks in a sense, and then they keep the detailed tasks level. You got to be careful with that, because if a resource is looking at their work, it only presents to them what they're actually assigned to. So you just got to find that balance so that they're not presented with so many things or not presented with not enough things. Some do. It's not recommended because if you're using time tracking to track your progress, it's not recommended. Because what happens is it doesn't know the progress of your project. If you're not doing that and the project manager is keeping track of the detailed information themselves, it can work. It can work that way. Yes, you're absolutely right. That's kind of what we did, is they just keep them at the summary for time tracking only, not for progress tracking. Project manager keeps track of that themselves by the details that they put in, but the time tracking's at the higher level. It's a very strange way of doing that, but it keeps them happy right now. So we haven't found any hiccups yet, but I'm sure they're coming.
Given the time we have left, so maybe the last question.
Looking at multiple skill sets of your resources when you're looking at that? Are you to that point yet?
We are. Right for us right now, we're just using a primary and a secondary for most of our people, because mostly that's for our engineering function. It's mostly what they have. I mean, we've got somebody that's a mold engineer, and that's pretty much what they do. So their roles are pretty similar, but we are using that. And it's been reasonably effective. And we have a big resource pool, and trying to pull people in, it's typically people can look at it by their business unit, so they can see the people in their business unit, but they can also have access to people in other businesses that may have skills that they're lacking, and they can barter for that. Within our IT group, we're doing the same thing right now, and it's not working as well, because most of our IT people have more skills in that. So we haven't quite gotten there yet to figure out how we're going to go and try and deploy that, so somebody may have a whole, if you have an answer to that, I'd love that.
Yeah, I'd like to discuss that one with you further, because we're not there yet either.
So we did something a little bit differently than that. We want to go to that level. We're not there yet, but what we did do is we went out and we built a library of generic resources, and then we assigned people to that. So, but that has limitations. You can only put people into one category and all that. But that's the first step. The next step is, like you say, to go kind of to a skills management library. And keep in mind, with all that functionality, and it is available, comes a level of maintenance and administration that you have to do. So you need to also balance that, as well as, is the effort to do it worth the cost of what will come out of it? So great question. Thank you.
So our time is off. I want to thank all of you that have attended this session. I want to
thank you very much, you guys.
Both of our customers. You're all welcome to attend some of our project-related sessions in the next few days. There are some really great sessions, so we'll be very happy to meet you there. And thank you.
Thank you.